Grain-free versus gluten-free. What are they? Why would you do either? Is one or the other better? And how do you do them at all? Well, let's get the facts. First, what does it mean to be gluten-free or grain-free? Gluten is a protein that's found in multiple different types of grains. It actually has no nutritional value of its own, but it gives baked goods that elasticity and fluffiness and rise that we're so used to in the breads and cakes that we eat. Going gluten-free means avoiding grains that contain gluten, which include things like wheat and barley and rye, and then of course anything that contains those things. Going grain-free is a little bit different because it means avoiding all grains whether they contain gluten or not. So this includes all of the gluten grains mentioned before, along with corn and rice and oats, and then anything containing any of those. A lot of grain-free diets also exclude things like legumes and quinoa, as those things are considered really difficult to digest too, so some people kind of classify them in with the grains. So why do either, and is one better than the other? Well, let's look at gluten-free first. So a lot of people look at going gluten-free because of the digestive issues that gluten can cause. It's actually really hard to digest, and our grain today actually contains about 40 times the gluten that it used to contain when our grandparents were kids. So it's kind of no wonder that gradually gluten intolerance has become a really huge thing. Gluten intolerance can include any kind of digestive upset, such as bloating, nausea, vomiting, and gas. It can also be shown in headaches, migraines, joint pain, fatigue, anemia, lack of concentration. So going gluten-free is actually just a little bit easier, I would say, than grain-free, just because there are so many people that are gluten-free now that a lot of companies are starting to offer some really great options for alternatives. So it's a lot easier to find things like breads and pastas and things like that in the store that are gluten-free. Transitioning to gluten-free baking is also maybe a little bit easier because of all of the all-purpose gluten-free flour blend options that are out there. So it's definitely, I would say it's probably maybe the easier option, especially if you're looking for ready-made things that are more available. Now, a lot of people that go gluten-free find that that is what works for them. They feel so much better that going gluten-free is enough, and if it is, that's great. But what if it's not? What if you need to go a little bit deeper? Grains are difficult to digest, whether they have gluten in them or not. And so eating grains can bring additional problems of their own on top of the same symptoms as gluten intolerance. They can cause things like huge spikes in blood sugar. They can damage proteins, leading to cholesterol problems. They feed inflammation. They actually pull nutrients from our body, and they can lead to a lack of energy and some cognitive problems, such as difficulty focusing or concentrating. I would say going grain-free can be just a little more challenging, mainly because there's not quite as many ready-made options at the store. There are actually some out there though, because more and more people are also going grain-free. One plus to that is it definitely makes it a little bit easier to avoid refined sugar, as there's not quite as many ready-made treat options at the store, so you have to make them yourself. There are definitely a lot of really great grain-free options though, and if you look at the different recipes that you can find replacements for a lot of the things that you're used to eating and find things that are even better. Baking grain-free is actually a little more complicated too, but if you find some really good tried and true recipes and learn how to make them, learn the science behind it, and then you can play with it yourselves to make it your own, it's actually not as hard as it looks, and it is seriously delicious. I personally and my family, a lot of them have come to realize that grain-free baking is actually tastier, healthier, and has an amazing texture. So it's definitely doable. Other perks to grain-free include things like it's definitely more filling. So it's a lot easier to have healthier serving sizes because you're eating more proteins and more veggies, which tend to fill you more and give you a more sustained energy so that you don't have to feel like you have to keep filling up because of that empty energy that starches tend to give you. I think a lot of it is just shifting your focus from the typical mindset that we have of needing a protein and a veggie and a starch with a meal, and instead focusing it on just the proteins and the veggies and building a really great meal off of that. 2 tips that I have for going grain-free are involve your kids. If you have kids, it can be really hard to transition from a diet that they're used to something completely different. I have one kid specifically that came kicking and screaming, but now he actually tends to like the grain-free stuff a little more. My youngest, though, it's been really interesting to watch because she specifically was struggling with migraines and chronic growing pains. And when we went off of grain, those symptoms disappeared. And to this day, she can handle the treat here and there, but if she has too much grain, some of those symptoms symptoms sometimes come back. And so she's seen the difference herself. And so she can stand up for herself and choose whether she wants grain or not, especially when we go out places. Plus, when you involve them in the kitchen, they kind of own it. They get to experience fixing the food themselves, seeing what goes in it, and seeing how amazing it tastes. And then that makes grain-free their lifestyle too, and not just yours. Secondly, as with any food lifestyle, tailor it to what you need. Going grain-free, like I said, a lot of people avoid legumes, which is things like dried beans and peanuts, but some people don't feel that that's necessary. Even if you choose to go with a really specific diet, like maybe paleo, you're gonna find differences within cookbooks, even within that diet. I have a few paleo cookbooks, and some people still eat rice, some people still eat dairy, some people are okay with the legumes, and some people will avoid all of those things. The way we did it was we excluded kind of everything, and then we kind of tried to pick and choose the things that worked for us. We don't really have any severe reactions to legumes, so we eat them sometimes. My kids love beans. So you kind of have to tailor a diet to fit you because we're all different. So a cookie cutter diet does not always fit everyone for their best needs. And also, I think one of the biggest things I could say with any kind of diet change, with anytime you go to a real food diet, I think one of the biggest things is trying not to focus on what you're missing out on, what you're lacking, and then because then you feel deprived. I think instead you have to focus on all the delicious and amazing foods that you have access to, because then you feel grateful. Then you learn to enjoy all the amazing foods. And honestly, I have to say that the options for going grain-free have shown me all the delicious ways to cook vegetables, to cook proteins, and has really opened up a whole new way of cooking to me that has not only nourished my family, but that we have thoroughly enjoyed. If you're looking for different grain recipes to help you get on your way, click around on our channel because we have lots of different recipes on here that are grain-free, and we're planning to put a lot more up. So if you enjoyed this video, I hope it helped you a lot to know the difference between grain-free and gluten-free, and helps you to take a clear look at it to choose what's best for you and your family, and how to get started if you choose one of those. If you have any questions about grain-free or gluten-free, please put them in the comments below. I would love to hear them. We can get some discussions going. And if you have any special experiences with any of these diets or any other better eating lifestyle, I would love to hear them below as well. Please like and subscribe to keep up to date on all our videos as they come out. And thank you again so much for watching.